Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. We have been covering the case of Denise Williams for the death of her husband, Mike Williams, back in 2000, a murder committed admittedly by her alleged boyfriend, Mr. Winchester. I'll call him Mr. right now. His name is really Brian. He really doesn't deserve the term Mr. But to get you caught up, because in case you haven't been in this case involving murder, mayhem, sex, everything, insurance fraud, possible insurance fraud, we have a package done by our own Rachel Stockman.
A Florida woman is facing life in prison for allegedly helping to plot her husband's murder. Denise Williams is on trial for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and accessory after the fact for her involvement in the 2000 disappearance and death of her husband, Jerry Michael Williams. Mike was reported missing in December of 2000 after not returning home from a duck hunting trip on Lake Seminole. A few years after the couple married in 1994, Williams is accused of encouraging her husband to take out 3 life insurance policies, totaling over $1.7 million. 2 of these 3 policies were signed off on by the victim's best friend, Brian Winchester. Winchester and Williams allegedly began having an affair in 1997, and according to interviews by Winchester, the 2 began planning Mike's death at least 10 months before he went missing. The indictment claims that Williams collaborated on planning the death of Michael Williams, who ultimately died at the hands of Winchester. Williams began filing to collect the benefits of the life insurance policies just 11 days after Mike went missing. A separate indictment on insurance fraud charges claims Williams reported her husband's death as accidental drowning. Williams and Winchester married in 2005 but split a number of years later. Winchester is currently serving 20 years in prison for a kidnapping charge in 2016 when he held Denise at gunpoint in her car for a number of hours. After he pled no contest to the charges, he agreed to provide information on Michael's death, implicating Denise in this twisted plot and taking investigators to Mike's body in 2017. Williams is pleading not guilty to the charges, claiming she had nothing to do with the murder. For Law and Crime, I'm Rachel Stockman.
Well, that little baby you see in that picture that's been covered over is now a 19-year-old daughter of Denise Williams. And no matter what happens here, you know that she is the victim of all this, whether or not her mom was involved with implicating her father or not. So we have so much to discuss. We have a great guest. It's first time on Law and Crime Network, Judge Quinton Washington. Judge, how are you? Good. Nice to see you. Hopefully this will be very easy for you because your credentials are impeccable. You're a judge. You're a trial attorney. You're admitted to every court that I conceivably read about. So we do our homework here. We have your CV. You're a member of the leadership Georgia leadership class. I mean, just everything. Now, with that everything, and as a judge's experience, what as a defense would you focus on going forward?
I would have to try to poke holes in the immunity agreement and the credibility of now, I guess, Mr. Winchester, because I don't know how you get with a confession as strong as he's giving. I don't know how you, and the fact that he was able to show you where the body was and they hadn't been able to find it for almost 20 years. I don't know how you get around him not having the credibility that closes this case.
And we just showed, as you were speaking, what we call B-roll, of him crying on the stand. You know, oh, God, I'm so upset. You know, if I were cross-examining him and I didn't have my forensics hat on, I'd be like, and were you crying when you pulled the trigger on your best friend?
Right.
Were you crying when you pulled him out? Were you crying when you put him in your car? I mean, I would be taking those crocodile tears, if they are crocodile tears, to task to show that he got a big deal. And we have judged the immunity agreement. I want you to tell people what it is. We have it right here. He gets immunity from even derivative crimes in the future. Anything he talks about. What does that mean?
Basically, what that means is that he can't be prosecuted or go to jail for the murder of supposedly his best friend, Jerry Michael Williams. And so because of that, and there may be other illegality that flows from that, such as the fact that his estranged at some level wife is being charged with insurance fraud, etc., he can't be charged with any of that.
He can't be charged with any of that. Right. And that could be a life imprisonment term, another life imprisonment term, more terms on that. I mean, so he's getting a free ride for shooting his best friend in the face with looking at him in the water in a duck hunting trip. Would you approve any plea or immunity agreement like this?
I would listen to a bunch of questions about it. The reason why is because he's the only person, unfortunately, that has evidence that would be able to convict someone, because they weren't able to find the body without him saying, here's where the body is, and they pulled it up.
Well, let's listen, Judge, to some of the testimony of yesterday when he talked, Brian Winchester, the killer, about shooting his best friend. So, Judge Quinton Washington from Fulton County, Georgia, would anybody in Georgia buy this? I didn't know how to get out of this situation, as he's circling around and then pumps his shotgun, which is an incredible scary sound. Would you buy that? Do you think a jury's buying this? I mean, I'm having trouble.
Well, here's what I think. I think that absent there being clear evidence on the other side, he had a good reason to shoot his best friend. Now, ultimately, that would be up to a jury to decide, but the level of information he has and the level of detail that he has, he was there, I would say, definitely when it happened.
Yeah, I agree. I buy that. What I don't buy is the phony tears, and I think the defense had to or has to take advantage of that to show that he knows how to concoct. Right? Wouldn't you, as a defense interviewer, even sitting there as a judge, know that he knows how to concoct to get out of situations? He knows how to make the story saleable.
Well, here's the only question, though. The only question that you look at on the other side of it is, why would he say that if he didn't do it?
Well, Judge, if I were the defense attorney, here's what I'd do. I'd read his and let me pull up. I don't want to, read it wrong. I would do possibly anything I could to stay out of prison. Yes. Isn't that a good motive, that he would make it up against Denise Williams? Because what else does he have to offer besides the body? Once he offers the body and they don't take it, what else does he have to give?
Well, here's the other thing. I think the best way they can poke holes in his credibility is to show that they were about to find out that he did it, and that he was about to get criminal charges that would have kept him in jail for life because of what happened.
Well, Judge, do you buy the fact that here is supposedly his cohort, the wife, Denise Williams, is on trial? She's kidnapped by this man who has a gun on her sides. He has tarp. He has things to tie up. He has bleach in his car when he kidnaps her. Most men I know don't have bleach in their car, and he kidnaps her. And then he says, oh, she wants me to do life in prison for this? Oh, well, she was my cohort. Isn't that a good reason to say you could doubt his credibility?
Oh, definitely so. Definitely so. But you've got a lot of information that links both of them that could get both of them substantial time, because you've got the fraud, you've got that one to two people possibly were involved in the killing. You have those two people as being beneficiaries of over $1 million of insurance that they could have collected. You've got that they were close and that he had enough information about what happened at the scene to where he's going to get significant time, even if he was not the shooter.
Well, obviously, Judge, you have to do the prosecution closing. I have to do the defense closing. But before any of that, we have to go to break. Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. Aaron Keller, as you know, has a show at 5 o'clock called The Daily Debrief. I never miss it. You shouldn't either. But here today, he's going to tell us what's on it. Hi, Aaron.
Hey, Linda, look, I'm glad you're watching. I at least have one very important viewer. So here's what's up tonight on The Daily Debrief. Michael Cohen, the president's former fixer and personal attorney, sentenced today, of course, to 3 years in prison. We're going to break down the charges that he's going away for, along with myself and our senior legal editor, Ron Blitzer. That's off the top of the debrief. Plus, we're going to deconstruct this Denise Williams case and all of the bizarre sexual activities back and forth between her and the state's key witness. Is he even telling the truth? That's the big question. We're going to look at the cross-examination yet again and deconstruct that. Also, this other story is interesting. It involves nuns, $500,000 and a big plea for forgiveness. That's tonight on the Daily Debrief.
Wow, yeah, I can't wait to hear about the nun story being
Okay.
a product of the Catholic school education. But first, we're going to have to go back. No, not have to. We want to go back to this Winchester. It's actually the Denise Williams trial, but Brian Winchester is the star, if you'd say, the star witness, because he got immunity, and he was cross-examined about whether or not he's just outing Denise because he wants to save himself. Well, that's Brian Winchester in a heated cross-examination because the defense attorney is trying to say, hey, you're just trying to save yourself. Remember that prison statement that we just heard? Now, Judge Quinton Washington from Fulton County in Georgia. You were watching this with me. Now, what is he talking about? He's talking about this, and I have it right here, right hot off the presses, off the court website with this Wade Wilson, Jennifer Winchester, Kim Adams. Apparently, he was trying to have his sister involved, his friend involved. He was thinking about hiring a hitman named, if you can believe this, Wade Wilson. But he didn't. He was trying to suggest that he was going to pay off people, and the prosecution actually filed an in limine motion to prevent that testimony from coming before the jury just the other day. But it has, because why? It goes to his credibility or what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely goes to his credibility, because at the end of the day, when jurors have to make the determination about who they believe and what they believe, and so what he's saying, if there's a mounting amount of evidence that says that he's uncredible, that's the decision for the jurors to make as to whether or not they find innocence or they convict. And so for him, if they're showing that he's lying all the time, how is he lying about what he's saying happened when he's supposed to kill his best friend?
Well, one of the things he didn't lie about is that he killed his best friend with a shotgun, with bird pellet, because we heard from the medical examiner today that showed the picture of the x-rays. If he didn't lie about that, does that help him?
Yes. Because
why?
Here's what jurors are going to think about. When jurors go back there, they're going to be like, if we don't believe what Mr. Winchester says happened, then what do we believe happened such that we don't find him guilty of murder, etc.?
But here's the question I would ask everybody after they testified who was doing the forensics, the medical. Is there anything that you did, and I did this in a case last year named Aaron Hernandez, is there anything you did in your forensic investigation that connected my client sitting here having to listen to all this, listen to everything you said with my client? Anything? And what would the answer have to be? Oh, I see you're squirming a little bit, right? The answer would have to be no, right, Judge?
Yeah, you squirm on that one. You wouldn't want to say anything. You wouldn't want to say anything about it. But at the same time, part of what people know, especially when you're impaneling jurors who have lived in the area for a long time, which are going to be off your voter rolls, they have a general idea or have a general memory of what happened. And so they're going to be like, oh, we're now finally bringing this to a close. Is this plausibly what happened? Is this not? And if it's not, is it such that I vote to acquit or I vote to hang the jury in such a manner that we don't reach a verdict and we have a mistrial?
Well, we're going to continue to see. I understand that the court is back in session, so we're going to take you right back into the courtroom in the trial of Denise Williams. Well, that was Mike Williams, his brother, who talked about a situation dealing with his former sister-in-law, Denise Williams, who's on trial for the murder of that brother. Now, I'd like to bring Judge Washington back in. Now, Judge, I know there's a lot of disagreement here, but I thought that was a pretty skillful cross-handling of victim, and quite frankly, I think this case turns on Ansley. I think that the defense has to show that insurance proceeds went to help her, to make her a better William, to give her an education, to make her a person. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think part of the issue is that if it's true that they're withholding custody, that's something that judges look at as well, because a product of this is that you're harming a child. And so that's something that they're going to think about. That's something that when the testimony is brought out and you're thinking about jury charges, et cetera, you're going to look at that. But then also jurors are going to look at, make a determination about whether or not
by constantly talking about
that person is credible as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very fine line to cross. I think the defense crossed it very well, as much as you could in this case. You would agree as a judge. You would allow all that testimony in, by the way. I know there's an objection from the prosecutor, but you would have allowed it in.
Yeah, I mean, because you're ultimately trying to. My position is, I would let that go more to the weight of it rather than the admissibility.
All right, Judge, we have to take a quick break. Stay tuned with us all because this is a mesmerizing trial. Come back after this. Well, I am just, I'm not even sure I know what to say. That is just some cross-examination, direct examination that just exposes the tragedy and the humanity and the amount of victims there are in this case. Judge Quinton Washington from Fulton County in Georgia, you just watched Cheryl, the victim's mother, who has for all these years wanted an investigation into her son's death, testify. As a judge, as you're sitting there as a judge, what do you think about her testimony?
I mean, I think that she came across as credible. I think that what most people recognize is that grandparents wanting to see grandkids is a very real thing, and she would have wanted to see her granddaughter. Which is why,
Judge, I think we should discuss the fact that that granddaughter becomes important to the defense. If that granddaughter gets up and says, I didn't want to see my grandmother, my mother was a provider, she helped me, she never let me forget my father, but I just didn't want to see my grandmother, I've been to counseling, therapy, whatever, and I decided not to. Is that a way around dealing with this kind of testimony, whose optics are not good for the defense?
Right, that's what I was saying. I was thinking that the defense attorney did a really good job of questioning her while he was up there about the reaction. And one of the things I took a note about was the reaction of an innocent person. Is that the way she should have reacted? And they said yes. I don't know why the prosecution didn't jump up with an objection then, because it did call for speculation.
But when you're having with the mother, whether it's the prosecution or the defense, you've got to tread pretty lightly. I thought that, and it was Mr. Padovano who did the opening here. He's the more senior member, I think, of the team. I thought he did pretty skillful about the innocent question and trying to show that there may be another side to the story. But still, it's the optics, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Our optics evidence. Our optics evidence, Judge.
When the state got back up there and in their redirect, they did a good job of recasting her to show more of the coldness and the criminal intent behind this, because their position was, she's known this all along, and she's never apologized, never said anything, never let them see the daughter, etc. And, the grandmother is doing the best she can to come in there and, with some assistance, some wheelchair, etc., to come in there and testify about this case. And when thinking about whether or not she has an axe to grind, she didn't come across as having some level of an axe to grind with the defendant.
She came across as, if she is misplaced about Denise Williams, which is what the jury is going to tell us, if she is misplaced, it's not because of any type of revenge, it's just because she wanted to know the truth, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And that's a big difference from somebody saying, oh, you just want to be a vengeful person, I think. I don't know about you.
No, because it cuts into that credibility. Because at the end of the day, when you go back and the jurors are sitting there thinking about this stuff, they're thinking about, who do I believe? And if I believe them, what set of facts do they tell me? And as I'm thinking, as an individual juror, and I'm thinking through those facts, what does that cause me to believe? Does it cause me to believe guilt or innocence, or I don't know?
Yeah, and the prosecution still has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why I say to you, Ainsley really becomes the key to helping that jury get over those optics. But we can't answer whether or not the jury is going to make that decision today, because they're not. But we can tell you we have to go to a break, and we'll be back on the other side. Anthony, thank you for bringing this story to us. Remember that second case where the rapist, he's convicted. A convicted rapist gets no time. And in fact, he serves less time than the poor woman who had the one-year-old baby yanked from her, who served 2 nights in jail. It's just outrageous sometimes the criminal system gets to me. But I can't solve that either, even with your help. So we're going to talk more about the case we have today, which was solved, where the body of Mike Williams was found and the killer was apprehended. We can talk about whether he was given jail time later. But to catch us up to speed, we have a news package by our very own Rachel Stockman.
A Florida woman is facing life in prison for allegedly helping to plot her husband's murder. Denise Williams is on trial for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and accessory after the fact for her involvement in the 2000 disappearance and death of her husband, Jerry Michael Williams. Mike was reported missing in December of 2000 after not returning home from a duck hunting trip on Lake Seminole. A few years after the couple married in 1994, Williams is accused of encouraging her husband to take out 3 life insurance policies, totaling over $1.7 million. 2 of these 3 policies were signed off on by the victim's best friend, Brian Winchester. Winchester and Williams allegedly began having an affair in 1997. And according to interviews by Winchester, the 2 began planning Mike's death at least 10 months before he went missing. The indictment claims that Williams collaborated on planning the death of Michael Williams, who ultimately died at the hands of Winchester. William began filing to collect the benefits of the life insurance policies just 11 days after Mike went missing. A separate indictment on insurance fraud charges claims Williams reported her husband's death as accidental drowning. Williams and Winchester married in 2005 but split a number of years later. Winchester is currently serving 20 years in prison for a kidnapping charge in 2016 when he held Denise at gunpoint in her car for a number of hours. After he pled no contest to the charges, he agreed to provide information on Michael's death, implicating Denise in this twisted plot and taking investigators to Mike's body in 2017. Williams is pleading not guilty to the charges, claiming she had nothing to do with the murder. For Law and Crime, I'm Rachel Stockman.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just got word here at Law and Crime that the prosecution will present the final witness tomorrow morning. She's flying in tonight, and it is going to be, we are told, the ex-wife of Brian Winchester, Kathy, who you remember was the subject today. We talked of different conversations, photos that supposedly were sexual. Is she going to tell us whether that's true or not? She also apparently wore a wire. She was taped when she was talking to the defendant on trial, Denise Williams. If you followed today, there was a law enforcement officer who talked about setting up the wire, but he didn't tell us what was on it. I was here with Bob Bianchi, and Bob kept saying, tell us what's on it. Well, tomorrow you will find out, but you only can find out here at Law and Crime. Judge Quinton Washington from Georgia. I mean, I'm just astounded that we have the ex-wife here going to tell us about her situation, what she knows about her ex-husband, the killer.
Yeah, that's going to be big.
What do you think she's going to say? What do you think she's going to say? I mean, well, we can't read tea leaves, but if she knows anything about her husband, she knows it, right?
Yeah, that's going to be big. I would assume that they would try to have some motion to try to exclude what she may say, some level of marital privilege they may argue, to try to say that she couldn't waive it or it'd be too highly prejudicial. But yeah, wow is all I can say. Now, if she knew or had suspect about her husband, would she be in any type of trouble if she testifies? I don't know whether she is, but I'm just saying legally you have to think of all these when you're in a case, right? Yeah, and I'm thinking what they're going to say is, well, as long as she didn't conspire or help anything, if she kind of thought it or he may have told her, I don't think she would have had an affirmative duty to tell what.
And the testimony was that he kind of used her. He kind of gave her something in her drink, some pills at the concert the night before, made her sleep. So he really used and abused his marital relationship with her, didn't he, Judge?
Right, and if that's the case, then it's likely that if they show that would tear through any protection that he would argue he should have, or his attorneys would argue he would have concerning marital privilege. And so at that point, if she testifies, she may be able to say a lot that may be incredibly difficult for them to get around.
Wow, I can't wait tomorrow, but right now we're going to talk more about this case, but we have to go to a quick break. Stay tuned. Wow, that's cross-examination. That's what a good defense attorney does. I mean, I would have spent more time on him, but it made the point, didn't it, Judge Quinton Washington? Now, let me just ask you, let's discuss this a little bit. He didn't finger Denise Williams in the murder of her husband until afterwards things started getting bad to him. His first proffer just said, I'll show you the body. Does that hurt him?
They're going to spin it to where it hurts him, but I guess what people will ultimately think about is it reasonable to believe that he's lying about this whole thing or trying to implicate somebody else to get out of this? That's one thing you're going to think about. Or because he has so much evidence about what happened, is it likely that he actually is telling what truly happened?
Well, does he have evidence so that implicates her? It's his word. Is there any physical evidence, anything else you see that implicates her that's physical?
Not that I've seen so far. But if they're having the type of relationship that, if they're able to prove the type of relationship, it would mean she may have known enough to be a co-conspirator, which is still a long time.
Yeah, and I think you're right that the optics of this case are she may have known, she may have been, but when does that get converted to beyond a reasonable doubt? That's the problem I'm having with the case. Do I think things occurred? Yeah, but do I think they've proven it? No, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, but see, that's the thing. The conspiring, the question is whether or not they paint her in such a bad light through the cumulative evidence that they're doing that she was conspiring in this, because they have at least the insurance policies to link the two of them together for over $1.75 million, which she had some of and he got some of.
Well, that's a lot of motive. He got the obviously he got when you buy it, he gets a certain amount for the premiums. He gets a payoff on that, and he said that he would get the benefit when they lived together, but that it wasn't formal. But does this give her a motive? Does this $1.6 million, $1.7 million give her a motive?
I think so. I think particularly if, and I don't know whether they'll be able to do any level of handwriting analysis, etc., because I think it's important to note, did he actually sign Mr. Williams?
Yeah, he did. I don't think there's been an issue on that unless the defense makes it. I have to interrupt you because we're going to go to the next clip of him testifying, implicating her on the stand in front of this jury.
Okay.
He killed his best friend in the face with a shotgun with bird pellet, and now he wants us to believe him. But he may be telling a good story. Francey Hakes, welcome. Hi, how are you? We've been discussing with Judge Washington this case. Have you been following it today? I'm sure you have, because it's involving sex, murder. I mean, it's just an amazing story that we found this poor the man. We even saw his wedding ring today. What do you think is going on with this case? Who's winning so far?
Well, it's really interesting, Linda. I mean, I think that it's actually difficult for the prosecutor in this case because you've got a man who's admitted that he's the trigger man. He wrote the insurance policies. I think it's pretty easy for the wife to say it was all part of his plan and not hers.
Well, if she doesn't, let me give you like what jurors tend to think. If she doesn't go get that wedding ring, which we saw on the body, we actually saw pictures of the body today, okay? Having his wedding ring still on. If she doesn't ask to have that back, does that hurt her? Does that like shift the burden a little bit? The jurors hate her so that the burden becomes less?
Yeah, I think they won't like her too much. But on the other hand, they did wait years to get married, these two. So it makes it look a little less like a plot. I just think this isn't quite as open as shut as I suspect the prosecutor hopes.
Now Judge Washington, Francey's just coming in the afternoon to help us with this analysis. You're kind of at that point too, but you think that it's more tilting towards conviction, which it should be if after the prosecution. If it doesn't tilt towards conviction for the prosecution's case, when does it tilt towards conviction, right?
No, I agree. I think that what's going to be tough if that clip that we saw is the only implication of the conspiracy that they had, that wasn't really good evidence. I mean, it would need to be something stronger about them coming up with the idea of how to kill him and et cetera, et cetera. From what I saw, that wasn't strong in terms of impact. But as you know, these accessories and parties to a crime and those laws are so broad-reaching and so vague that many times they do trip people up and they get, accused and actually found guilty of just having been around long enough.
That's an interesting take, Francey, that the judge has on this. And does that take apply to somebody who said, and let me read it so that I don't get it right, I would do anything I possibly could to stay out of prison? I understand what the judge is saying for the murder charges. Does that also indicate that possibly for the accessory, the conspiracy charges, that maybe, the evidence isn't very good on those either?
Well, of course, the judge is right. Accessory, before, after the fact, these are very vague laws. And I think that with the defendant on the stand, or the co-defendant on the stand, crying and taking responsibility, I think the prosecutor will obviously argue that he has nothing to lose, that he's exculpating her because he still loves her. And look at him right now. We just saw a clip of him totally breaking down on the stand, showing what looks to be remorse. I always call those crocodile tears. But I think it's a really interesting case so far. I don't think it's going to, I can't say whether it's going to go either way yet.
Yeah, Francey, I mean, that's really interesting, although, you know, just before we go to break, I have to just make a point here. Oh, did you cry when you shot your best friend in the face? On that, let's go to break. That was Lindsay Lockhart. She's telling us of what she saw that made her uncomfortable, which is the arms around Denise Williams by the killer of her husband who shot him in the face, Brian Winchester. It has been some day on Law & Crime. I have to thank my guests, by the way. You know, I just want to get you, quite frankly, your last comments. Judge, because you've been with me, final comment for the day.
This is going to be a wild one. Like, it's a neck-and-neck horse race, if you can call it that, because there's no way to determine really what the jurors are going to think about everything until they've heard from the prosecution's star witness, which is apparently going to be his ex-wife.
Wow.
But I can tell you, I typically think unless you have people who have massive psychological issues, and when people are telling you specific dates and times and places and all that type of stuff, that's probably close to what happened. And if he's saying they were in Panama and Colorado and all these places together as a threesome, that probably did happen.
Well, Francey Hakes, I would never have guessed that that's where this trial is going, a threesome. But something the judge just said about this, you know, in terms of this trial, right, is that it's now expanded, right? It's dates and places and the threesome. Does this help the prosecution or hurt?
I think it hurts, although I think, to your point earlier, I think the defense was hurt when they said there'd never be any evidence of an affair, and we have photographs of them apparently in flagrante delicto. So
well, that's with Kathy. That's with Kathy and Denise being taken apparently by Brian. It doesn't include Mike apparently.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting twist the defense attorney should have told the jury was coming.
Well, I think the defense attorney should have told us too. I mean, I was like this today. I was like, you got to be kidding me, you know? It's just this trial. You know, it should involve just the victim, right? It should involve just who killed Mike and are the killer or killers going to get justice? And instead, you know, we're suffering through a prosecution which has given this guy immunity for this shooting, which is terrible. We're going to have these poor women. This poor woman is going to get on the stand. Kathy Thomas tomorrow. You're going to have to stay with us. Who's going to have to be confronted with these pictures of her in not a good situation with Denise Williams. I just, you know, Law & Crime involves a lot of things, but this Denise Williams trial and Brian Winchester, it's something you have to watch all the time. I want to thank my producers. I want to thank everybody for watching. Stay tuned to Aaron Keller on the Daily Debrief. This is the Law & Crime Network. I'm Linda Kenney Baden. See you next week. Bye.